What if we told you that there is a man who practically built modern drag racing from scratch, but in a stunning twist, people kept betting against him? Don Big Daddy Garlits spent his entire career proving doubters wrong. But why did those doubters exist in the first place? Picture this: a broke kid from Tampa, Florida, building his first dragster under an oak tree in his backyard with nothing but an arc welder and a cutting torch. No factory backing, no fancy tools, no engineering degree, just pure determination and a 1927 Ford Model T Roadster that he was about to transform into something legendary. Don Garlits started with absolutely nothing. His first dragster was a mechanical nightmare, a 1948 Mercury engine block bolted to a 1939 Ford transmission, sitting in that ancient Model T Roadster. The thing ran 13.5 seconds at 93 miles per hour, which sounds pathetic by today's standards. But in 1954, it was fast enough to win his first NHRA race at Lake City, Florida. The name Swamp Rat wasn't some clever marketing scheme, though. Garlits was literally a swamp rat from Florida, scrounging parts from junkyards and building race cars that looked crude compared to the polished machines coming out of California. The West Coast elite called him Don Garbage because his cars looked like they were assembled from scrap metal. But you know what they say about underestimating someone? It usually comes back to bite you. Local drag strips in the South might have laughed at him, but Garlits had something they didn't understand: an obsession with going faster that bordered on insanity. While other racers were all about following established formulas, Garlits was experimenting with fuel mixtures, gear ratios, and chassis designs that seemed crazy at the time. His secret weapon? Bigger fuel lines. While everyone else was using tiny lines that restricted flow, Garlits figured out that more fuel meant more power. He hid these oversized lines along the frame rails to keep competitors from stealing his innovation, which was brilliant in its simplicity and gave him the edge he needed to start dominating local competition. But the real test came when he ventured outside Florida. When Garlits set a 180 miles per hour record in December 1958, racers up north flat out ignored it because it happened on the East Coast. The message was clear: if you want respect, come west and prove it. It was at the 1959 NHRA Nationals in Great Bend, Kansas, and then later at Bakersfield's March Meet, where Garlits showed up with over 30,000 people watching and proceeded to embarrass everyone. This wasn't just about winning a race. This was about a nobody from the swamps schooling the entire drag racing scene. The shock wasn't just about his speed. It was about legitimacy. When Garlits started winning major events against the best competitors in the country, he forced the sport to acknowledge that innovation could come from anywhere. You didn't need California backing or fancy equipment. You just needed to be smarter, work harder, and want it more than everyone else. But success brought new challenges. Suddenly, everyone wanted to beat the Swamp Rat. Every track, every race, Garlits had a target on his back. The pressure was immense, but it's what created legends. Champions rise to the occasion, and Garlits thrived under that pressure. Drag racing in the 1960s was brutal, and Garlits paid the price multiple times. In 1959, a supercharger explosion nearly burned him alive, leaving him with severe burns that sidelined him for months. Then came March 8, 1970, the day that changed everything. At Lyons drag strip, his transmission exploded, ripping Swamp Rat 13 in half and severing part of his right foot. Most people would have quit. Garlits? He started sketching the future of drag racing from his hospital bed. The rear-engine dragster he designed wasn't just innovative, it was revolutionary. Instead of sitting behind the engine and transmission like a human target, drivers would now sit in front of the most dangerous components. When Swamp Rat 14 debuted in 1971, track officials tried to ban it, competitors refused to race against it, and everyone thought Garlits had lost his mind. But when the times were posted, every front-engine dragster became obsolete overnight. The sport became a series of personal wars, and Garlits thrived on every single one. Don the Snake Prudhomme was his California nemesis, representing everything slick and professional about West Coast racing. Tom the Mongoose McEwen provided the comedy and the rivalry that made for great television. Shirley Cha-Cha Muldowney challenged his dominance and proved women could race just as hard as men. But these rivalries weren't just about ego. They pushed everyone to be better. When Prudhomme would set a new speed record, Garlits would come back with something faster. When new safety regulations were introduced, Garlits would find ways to make his cars both safer and quicker. Competition bred innovation, and innovation bred speed. Every time people said he was finished, Garlits would build a new swamp rat and prove them wrong. It became his signature move, retirement followed by a comeback that was better than anything he'd done before. The man was like a drag racing phoenix, constantly rising from the ashes of his own supposed obsolescence. The numbers don't lie, and Garlits' numbers are absolutely staggering. First to 170 miles per hour in 1957. First to 180 miles per hour in 1958. First to 200 miles per hour in 1964. First to 240 miles per hour in 1968. First to 250 miles per hour in 1975. First to break 270 miles per hour in 1986. It is safe to say that every major speed barrier in drag racing history has Garlits' fingerprints on it. 17 world championships across NHRA, AHRA, and IHRA. 144 national event wins, more than any other drag racer in history, along with 3 NHRA Top Fuel Championships, including back-to-back titles in 1985 and 1986, when he was in his 50s and supposedly past his prime. But the most impressive stat? At age 69, after being retired for 14 years, Garlits borrowed a Top Fuel car and drove it over 300 miles per hour. Most athletes are done by 40. Garlits was setting personal bests in his 70s. Beyond his driving skill, Garlits was also a genuine engineering genius who revolutionized every aspect of drag racing. The rear engine layout that every modern dragster uses, Garlits invented it. Aerodynamic nose cones that cut through the air, Garlits pioneered them. Advanced clutch management systems, Garlits developed them. He wasn't just winning races, he was rewriting the blueprint of the sport itself. Safety equipment like full-body Nomex suits, improved fire suppression systems, and stronger chassis designs all bore his influence. When the sport needed to evolve, it looked to Garlits for the answers. The Smithsonian Museum displaying Swamp Rat 30 is not just about honoring a race car. It's about recognizing genuine innovation that changed American motorsport forever. Most racers drive fast cars, while Garlits built the future and then drove it faster than anyone else. By the 1990s, Garlits had become a living legend, but some critics argued his dominance came from being in the right place at the right time. They claimed he succeeded because drag racing was still primitive, before sophisticated engineering and big-budget teams took over. But here's what those critics missed. Garlits didn't just dominate one era. He constantly reinvented himself across multiple generations of the sport. When the competition got better, he got better. And when technology advanced, he advanced with it. Even in his 90s, Garlits was still pushing boundaries with electric dragsters, setting EV speed records, and proving that innovation doesn't retire. The man who broke the 200 miles per hour barrier with nitromethane was the same man trying to break 200 miles per hour with batteries. That's not lucky timing. That's excellence across 6 decades. So, how good was Don Garlits actually? Was he a brilliant driver who happened to be in the right place at the right time? A genius engineer who revolutionized the sport? Or the man who single-handedly defined what modern drag racing would become? The answer might be all 3. But here's what we know for certain. Every major innovation in drag racing history traces back to his workshop in Florida. Every speed record he didn't set, he inspired others to chase. Every safety improvement implemented came from lessons learned in his crashes. Would we have rear-engine dragsters, professional safety equipment, or the technical sophistication that defines today's sport if it weren't for this legend? The man didn't just race in drag racing history, he wrote it. That's not just being good, that's being irreplaceable. So, Don Garlits, the Swamp Daddy himself, we salute you. Like this video? Then don't forget to subscribe. We've got more content just like this on the way.